I mean, the thing that does make me angry is when people talk about us being a non-traditional family, because I think, like, are you kidding? I mean, how much more traditional could we be? I go to work, Cheryl stays at home, we have 3 kids, we have 2 dogs, we live in a little colonial. I mean, Graham moved in with us, and what the freak do you want from us? You know, like, I mean, how much more normal can we be, really? I don't know. I don't know. Yes, we're 2 women, but everything else, you know, we're active in our communities, we volunteer, we vote, like all of the stuff that is on the commercials about what you should do, that's who we are. So I hate when people call us a non-traditional family. We're pretty traditional.
We just celebrated 18 years 3 days ago. 3 days ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A long time. A long time. It feels like, you know, we're getting close to the point where we've been together half of our lives. You know, we've spent half of our lives together, or we're close to the place where we'll sort of the tipping point where we've been together longer than we were apart. And yeah, it's just sort of kind of crazy to think about it.
We actually started dating in high school. We went to separate colleges though. I went to the University of Pittsburgh and he went to NYU. So we had like that period of time where we kind of like grew on our own or whatever. And then we moved in together after college in 2002, and the rest is history.
We probably met about 9 years ago, and in October, I believe it was, and began dating, and it progressed relatively quickly. I think that we moved in together then in February, and he moved into my house, and you know, a couple of years later we got a dog, and then we decided we were going to buy a house together, and you know, so it's been 9 years that we've been together. We finally got married this year.
DOMA stands for the Defense of Marriage Act, and it was enacted in the 90s during the Clinton administration, and it defines marriage as being a union only between a man and a woman. So that has caused great headaches and heartaches for many gays and lesbians since then.
This was just a federal law, but what happened in the months and years after the federal passage of DOMA was that most individual states passed their own DOMA laws, and so this is why a same-sex couple can marry in one state perhaps, but then their union might not legally be recognized in another, because each individual state has its own definitions of marriage and its own variations of the Defense of Marriage Act.
In July, the Presbyterian Church of the USA had their General Assembly here in Pittsburgh, and they were deciding whether they were going to expand their definition of marriage to include same-sex folks, basically changing the definition to not be between a man and a woman, but between 2 people. Mm-hmm. And that's what they were deciding. And I lobbied them kind of heavily. I spoke to their committee that was deciding about, you know, my faith and my experience with their church, and so issues of marriage were sort of at the forefront with us, because we were both participating and discussing our feelings about it a lot. And when the church failed to change their definition, I had a really hard time accepting that church as my moral compass, because I felt like they were afraid of the outcome of doing the right thing. And I found that to be immoral, that you should do the right thing no matter how hard it is. And so I was very disappointed in them for failing to be more inclusive. And that precipitated more conversation about marriage in our relationship. And we actually started looking at, how can we get married in a church? How can we get legally married and married in a church? And started thinking about getting married next October. And planning some big to-do. And then during the conversation, we decided we didn't really want a big to-do, and decided that there wasn't any really good reason to wait until next October. And so we fast-tracked it and put it together in 2 months and got married last month, which was October of 2012.
I want to be married because I feel like it legitimizes our relationship. I mean, we have spent 18 years together. We've bought a house together. We have 3 children together. We live our lives together. I mean, we are a married couple in every way, except that we don't have a piece of paper that says, yes, indeed, you're a married couple. In a lot of ways, I feel like I couldn't think of living a more normal life than we have. I go to work, Cheryl takes care of the kids. We walk the dogs. We're involved in our community. And the one thing that we just aren't able to do is get a certificate that says, yes, our relationship is legally, sanctified or, acknowledged.
And that matters. That matters to people. My brother got married just because he could say that he was married. He and his, now ex-wife, they were living together for years and years, and my brother said, I want to be committed to you and I want to be married. And, he couldn't really explain why that mattered to him, but we can explain why it mattered to him. We can say, this makes a big difference that legally your partnership is legitimized in everybody's eyes. And even though we have family, my mom accepts us and Holly's mom accepts us and everybody in the family accepts our relationship as, this 20-year commitment, but I think that marriage would make it that much stronger for them, that it would legitimize it in a different way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Do you know what marriage is?
Yes.
Okay, what is marriage?
When 2 people really like each other and then they want to be with each other for the rest of their lives. So when they get married, they'll do that. But when you have 2 moms or 2 dads or 1 mom, they can't get married. They just can't get married.
Does that upset you?
Kind of.
Why?
It's just, they want to get married, I want them to get married. My brother and sister want them to get married. But it seems like that might happen. Or they would just be partners.
Do you know why they're not allowed to get married?
This guy breaks into him. He wouldn't let them get married.
I think when people think the word marriage, it's a pretty volatile word in a lot of ways. There's a lot of meaning that gets assumed into it. The idea is we don't have a real relationship until we're married. And it feels like there's somehow less of a commitment, no matter how many years we spend together, or how many things we own together, or how much turmoil we go through and fight through and get through, that somehow we're less than if we don't have the word marriage to explain our relationship, to say this is what it is. And sometimes it comes down to simple things of like language, right? Like, I was in a relationship for a long time, and girlfriend, when you're a 40-year-old woman, is like, really? I'm not 15. That doesn't really cut it. And then partner is like, is this a business partner? Is it, what kind of partner are we talking about? And partner seems kind of devoid of emotion in some way, or feeling. And so, whereas marriage has sort of been shortcut for that, for good or bad in our culture.
It's just strange, after spending 18 years with someone, to say, this is my girlfriend. It's sort of bizarre. It just feels like it doesn't really honor the relationship that we have, to not be able to say, this is my wife. And we use partner, and that, I think, is more realistic than girlfriend. That feels more like true to who we are. But here in our neighborhood in Pittsburgh, people, when you say partner, people assume you mean same-sex partner. Not everyone's using the word partner, so it's not like it's presumed to be the same thing as wife or husband. And maybe I would feel differently about the word if it had a more universal acceptance, that it was a word that everyone was using.
I got the sense that people took our relationship more seriously once we got engaged. When we started referring to each other as, oh, this is my fiance. It was like, oh, okay, they're not just dating. Because when you say oh, this is my boyfriend, this is my girlfriend, people don't really know.
I want another set of words. Lady friend is actually what I called you for some time.
That's true, lady
it's like
friend.
an upgrade from girlfriend. Paramour,
Yeah.
I think it's a very parallel problem.
Because there's no way of letting people know, this is my boyfriend, but I would always want to add the caveat, or follow that up with, we've been living together for 7 years. This isn't some guy I just started dating last month.
She gets stripes, like in the army. He's a sergeant boyfriend.
Yeah.
He's a captain boyfriend.
Marriage provides straight couples, heterosexual couples, many benefits, many protections. And it permeates so many different fields. For example, there's a divorce code in the state of Pennsylvania that provides what rights and obligations married folks have to one another in the event that they terminate the marriage. Unmarried couples do not have those same rights and benefits.
And we can't get married, which means we can't get divorced, so I'm stuck.
That's right, you remember that. There have been a couple recent court cases that may help define what people are entitled to. If you have real estate, for example, it's going to be based on what's on the deed. If it's a joint bank account, it may depend on what contributions each of you has made into that account, not necessarily a 50-50 split.
Really, what marriage gives us is the same right to get divorced as everybody else. And that sort of legitimizes your relationship. It takes property, and it takes money and finances.
If only one name is on that property, you may not have any rights with regard to that property, or you may. It really is fact dependent. So there is no automatic equitable distribution that takes place, unlike where parties are married. Because in a marriage, if one of you has opened up an account, then that's marital property if it was opened during the marriage, even if the other party's name is not on it. But you don't have that protection if you are not considered married. So that's one of the primary, the divorce code of Pennsylvania is one of the primary benefits.
That's a really pessimistic way to look at it.
A little bit.
That's how I see the world.
Yeah.
However, it's sort of true. It gives you protections in a partnership that you wouldn't have.
Yeah. If you own property with your spouse, then you have total protection from creditors. The creditor of one of you cannot put a lien on the property that's owned by husband and wife. That's not the case if the property is owned by two unmarried people. The creditor of one can attach the interest that one owner has, but that's not the case if it's husband and wife. So you have much more protection.
When we get those Social Security benefit statements that they send out every couple of years or every year or whatever, looking at what your spouse would get if something happened to you, that's a big deal. That's something that protects our family and our kids, and if something happens to one of us, then being able to have that. It's not much money, but the fact that someone else gets that money, that, you know, we've all paid into that system, and then to not be able to have that right, you know, to get that out of it if, you know, God forbid something happened, then, you know, that's a big deal.
Rights to inheritance for married people are, under the law, absolute. Even if, let's say, a husband has tried to disinherit his wife through a will, the spouse has the right generally to elect against that will and get a spousal share. That's not the case if unmarried folks, whether they're gay or lesbian or heterosexual, if you're unmarried, you have no right to inherit anything unless a will or a beneficiary designation says otherwise.
I mean, I think we've been pretty lucky that the places that we've worked have had domestic partner benefits, or we have had, we had a smart real estate agent that gave us good advice about writing a particular clause into our mortgage so that we were kind of equally protected, and if something happened to one of us, my half of the house wouldn't go to my family, it would go back to Cheryl. And so we've gotten some good legal advice, and we've been able to figure out what we need to do to help to protect ourselves. But the fact that we have to be doing that is, is hard, and does feel like, why should we have to be, super investigating all of these different, all these different loopholes and possibilities and sort of worst case scenarios to make sure that everything is okay. I mean, adopting the kids, we're really, really glad that in Allegheny County we were able to do co-parent adoption. So I could adopt, Cheryl carried all of our kids biologically, so I could also adopt the kids. But it was a nerve-wracking experience to go through that and to think, we know that our families are supportive and they know that we're in this for the long haul and that these are our children. But until that was done and the adoption was finalized, if something had happened to Cheryl, people make different choices when they're grief-stricken. Things happen, and what if they were sort of overcome by the loss of the sibling or a daughter and then wanted the children, and what does that mean for me? And so I think we're at a point now where those rights feel a little more shored up, but we had to take lots of steps to make sure that that was there, and that's a problem. Even things like benefits at work and taxes and taxation on benefits and all of that stuff, which are just things we've had to educate ourselves about, which I never thought I would be as familiar with, tax law or that kind of thing.
When did you sign a marriage license? Was it before you got married?
I guess you
Before, we went downtown. Yeah.
But then it has to be signed by the officiant and sent back to the prothonotary or somebody. Prothonotary is what we call the clerk of courts in Pennsylvania. Anyway.
Yeah, so we went downtown like probably a couple of months before our wedding. I remember that day, actually. I remember it being I was very excited to do that. And actually was so excited that I was running in the rain to my car and I tripped and hit my face on the sidewalk and broke my glasses and got a hole in my pants and bled. But we still went down and signed the marriage license.
You called me you were supposed to pick me up at school to go do that. You called me like, I fell and my face is bleeding and I skinned my knee and I ripped my pants. We can do this just any day of the week. It's fine. We can do this tomorrow or I actually remember it's a pretty stupid exam they make you take. They're like, are you related? No. Well, here's your marriage license. This can't be. Is that really all we have to do?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a couple of simple questions, and they are not. They didn't seem particularly well researched in the answers or anything. You just go take your sister down there and be like, no, we never met her before. Just met her on the street, and we can come in and get a license. It just seems like not really robust enough process, especially given again the context we're talking about.
It was pretty silly.
This is all we have to do. Yeah.
Do you remember getting the license? And it was kind of funny, like this is a little off topic, but we were waiting in line in this, cute little courthouse in this cute little New England town, and there was a 20-something straight couple in front of us in line, getting their marriage license.
That my
And-
sister and brother-in-law knew.
Yeah, they actually knew them, and they were so excited, and it was so sweet. They're getting their marriage license, and I realized, here we two 40-something-year-old men, we feel the exact same way, and it was sort of validating to, when I remember, because we were waiting in line, and they're getting their marriage license, and then we step up to the desk, and the attendant asked, what can we do for you? And I said, we want to do what they just did. And the attendant was like, all right. And she got out the marriage license book, and it was, we got a marriage license.
So once you got the marriage license, you said things changed though for you in your relationship as far as taxes and health insurance and coverage.
Sure, yeah.
What kind of things were different after just getting that piece of paper?
Mostly it's just the prospect of things changing. I mean, I don't really go to the doctor per se, so it's just the idea that I could now. We can both be on health insurance.
Yeah, health insurance was probably the biggest
Yeah, I was,
thing because he was in school at the time, and it would have been like a huge expense for him to have to get separate insurance, which was offered through the school, but really wouldn't have been convenient, or especially financially for us, it would have been a huge burden.
Did you have to show the marriage license for you to be put on the health insurance?
I have no idea.
I don't think that we did. I don't remember.
Did you show? Did you have to prove that you had a joint bank account, or that you had lived at the same place, or that you?
I don't.
I honestly don't recall having to do that. The way I'm remembering it is that I just had to write his information down, just provide his social security number, his name, stuff like that. But
Yeah.
that's an interesting question, because that makes me
Well, of
think
course.
that maybe other people have to go through a couple more hoops if
Though-
you're in a same-sex relationship.
If you could say, marriage, being married doesn't require that you have a joint bank account, or live in the same place, or have ever met each other, or have anything whatsoever to do with each other on a day-to-day basis. It's a totally separate construct. So, I mean, just marry somebody across the country and they can still be on your health insurance. I mean, honestly, the hardest part about that would be that health insurance is state regulated, so having someone in a different state would be a little tricky. But the fact that the marriage part is clean and simple.
So tell me about your wedding.
Oh, it was amazing. It was myself and Andy, of course, the Reverend. My sister, her husband, and my nephew, who lives in Boston, took the train up to Ipswich, and so it was just us. It was in the church proper. They sat in the first pew, or the second pew. We used Andy's father, who's a Presbyterian minister, wrote the service, which he did verbatim. We had sent it to him previously, and he did it word for word, didn't change a thing, which was very touching.
The whole church wedding thing was really important to me, and that whole spiritual component and getting married before the eyes of God, that was really important to me. And I think really sort of made it really special to me. We had a great time, and we actually, there's this church that's stood in Ipswich, Massachusetts for 300 years or something, really old church, and they have this giant book that they register all the married couples in, and
It was seriously.
and there's a place to sign for husband and wife, and I think they scratched out wife and put husband and signed our names in this giant book that had, how many couples have registered in this book that this church has. And, it felt good to be a part of that and be a part of the mainstream marriage scene in Massachusetts.
I guess to me the piece of paper would mean that not just acceptance of our relationship, but that our relationship is as good as any other relationship. It's
So it is acceptance.
more than acceptance, I think legitimizes, acceptance is one piece of it, but I feel like it takes it to a different level beyond that. Sort of it certifies it almost. It says your relationship isn't any different or less than other people who, you know, I feel like we always have to qualify the fact that we've been together for 18 years. People will say we've been, you know, they celebrate their wedding anniversaries and say they've been married for 5 years or they've been married for 10 years, and people are like, oh, married for 10 years. And I'm thinking, like, you know, we've spent almost half our lives together. So I feel like that piece of paper does, it's more than acceptance. It is about legitimizing the fact that, you know, it takes a lot to be together in a relationship and make it work for a long period of time. And to have that be acknowledged, I think, is important for everybody,
The stakes got a lot higher, and it was interesting because I honestly was one of those persons in the past that felt like I don't really need marriage, you know, and then there might have been a little bit of sour grapes that, you know, that wasn't a possibility for us at that time, and so if you can't have it, you don't want it. I was in the past a person that felt, you know, we don't really need marriage, and I changed on that, and it is entirely different. I feel way more committed now than I did before. It's a totally different level of commitment. And, you know, when you stand in front of God and your families and pledge to be true to each other and take care of each other, it's a whole different ball game than just we own a house and have a dog. You know, that's it. The stakes get a lot higher, and it's a spiritual component that didn't exist prior to our ceremony.
Absolutely.
I feel more committed.
We lived in Massachusetts for a while before it was legal to get married there. And we thought, wow, you know, we knew we would come back to Pennsylvania, and we've always said that we'll wait until it's legal where we live, because what's the sense in going to Massachusetts to get married just to come back here and have it not be legal? So we'll wait, and you know, as more and more of our friends get married, though, it gets more tempting to have something like that. You know, to stand up in front of all of your family and friends and say, I love you and I'm committed to you, and you know, I want to be with you for the rest of my life. That's a big thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to think about. I want, if we're gonna have a wedding, I want to have a wedding. You know, I don't want to have a ceremony. We've talked about having a 20th anniversary party. You know, we're coming up on 20 years of being together, so maybe we would have a big anniversary party, and that's the closest thing that we've had to sort of a wedding kind of a thing. But yeah, I mean, all of our friends and family are here in Pennsylvania, and we're homebody kind of people. We're not destination wedding sort of people, you know, so we would want to do something in our community. And yeah, it feels like, why would we go through all of that when if it becomes legal, or when it becomes legal, we would want to do it again, you know. So we've waited, but we've waited a long time.
Marriage is not just about romance. It's not just about attraction and building a family together. Marriage also is about the allocation of benefits.
So you're married on a state level in Massachusetts, but since it's not a federal right, you're still not protected in Pennsylvania.
The way the American laws are structured, if you are married, you can inherit money much more easily. You can be on your partner's health insurance plan. You can visit your spouse in the hospital if he or she is sick. You can make decisions about what procedures they have. There's a whole variety of benefits that are given to the spouse because they are the spouse. And our legal system and our marital system are very much tied up in that respect. We see marriage as an entry point to getting all sorts of government benefits and allocations of all sorts.
Did you get mad when you found out that Rick Santorum wouldn't let your parents get married?
Yeah, I thought they were already married.
So how did that change anything for you? Did you think something different, or was you just surprised?
I was just very surprised because I thought, oh, I'm wrong, they're not married yet. Because I thought they were married before me and Madeline were born.
the reason I want to get married, the reason I would get married if it were legal for me to marry who I love, is because that's what I've always dreamed of, right? Like, I want to find that one special person that I could spend the rest of my life with, and that we would raise a family together, and we would be committed to one another and stand up in front of all of our friends and family and say, we're in this for the long haul, that, you know, we're in this together, and that should be legitimized, and that means something to stand up in front of everybody and to sign on the dotted line and say, we're going to make this work. That it's not just about sort of taking the easy road or being all googly-eyed in love, which are great things, but I think there's more to a marriage and more to a partnership than just like some of those, you know, good times. And I think the commitment that comes along with getting married is really important. And the public nature of that, and having our friends and family be a part of that is important too. And I think even more so now that we have kids and the kids are getting old enough to know that that's something that we haven't done. I think having them ask why we haven't had a wedding has made me had to stop and think, like, yeah, why haven't we done that? But I do want to wait for it to be real. I don't want to play. I don't want to play marriage and play wedding. I want it to mean something.
Since marriage and the allocation of benefits are so directly tied, this is where patience on the legalization of same-sex marriage becomes really not a practical issue for many families who are trying to make ends meet. Paying health insurance out of pocket is very, very expensive, and to not have partner health insurance is a big deal. To not be able to visit your partner in the hospital, to not be able to inherit or make decisions about their finances. These are insults at a time of family crisis. So because marriage and the allocation of benefits are so tied together, that adds a new sense of urgency in terms of offering equal rights to folks regardless of their sexual orientation.
For the people that get all like indignant about feeling like I shouldn't get married and whatever, I guess I just feel like I don't know if I want to give them my time, honestly. Like, I just feel like they don't deserve my response or my time and attention. But I guess I just feel like who do you think you are? You know, it's not for you to decide whether my relationship is legitimate or not, and you don't get to pass judgment. And we work really hard at this relationship that's really, really special and means a lot, and it's just as important to me as any relationship is to anybody, you know. And I don't know, I think the angrier that people get and get all like, you know, fired up about it, it doesn't get me too angry back. It makes me feel like this isn't about me, this is about you. And there's something there that you got to figure out that has nothing to do with me and my family and my relationship, and has everything to do with you and whatever's going on for you.
Hi, I'm Hannah, and Santorum says some stuff that is not true about the moms. And he said I'll be better off living with a mom and a dad that is in jail. So, I would call him freaky back. Kind of. 'Cause he is mean to my moms. I'm 6.5 years old. I know who's going to take care of me. And I want them to take care of me. And it doesn't matter if you want me to be taken care of by a dad that is in jail and a mom that is in jail. Because I don't want a mom in jail. And I don't want a dad in jail either. So, you better be a nice person. Because this is the only life I have. And it's the only one I will have. Bye.
We have asked this question back to 2003 about whether you think marriages between gay and lesbian couples should be recognized as valid. And if you go back to 2003, you see that 31% of the American public said, you know what, we don't think that it... public opinion on this book, which is really should put them out.
We do know that a decision has been reached. We're going through the writings of the justices. We want to be precise, obviously, to make sure we fully understand what these justices have decided. But an issue in this first case, the Defense of Marriage Act, Gloria, is the specific question is whether or not it's constitutional to prevent federal benefits going to couples who are of the same sex.
And if you are legally married in a state, the question is whether the federal government should recognize your benefits. That's the key question here for the Defense of Marriage Act.
And we should know momentarily what these justices have decided. Tom Foreman is taking a much closer look at this Defense of Marriage Act as well. Tom?
Yeah, hey, well, right now, about 300 people are inside the chambers there. We can't take you there with any live cameras, but we can virtually set the scene. They're listening to what the justices are saying about this. Just as last March, they listened to the justices discuss this. Justice Roberts had a concern back then about the very thing John King mentioned a minute ago about the Obama administration. He pointed out the Obama administration would not defend it in court because they said it was unconstitutional, and yet they enforced it as a law. He said of the president, I don't see why he doesn't have the courage of his convictions. Justice Kagan was concerned about how it was enacted, that this was moralizing, not lawmaking by Congress. She said Congress decided to reflect collective moral judgment and disapproval of homosexuality. Justice Kennedy considered a very key vote in all of this, and the key part of the thing said basically he wanted to know if this was even something that Congress should be involved in. The question is whether or not the federal government has the authority to regulate marriage at all, and Justice Ginsburg jumped in on that issue we were discussing a while ago about how some states have approved it, but then she said the federal government comes in to say no joint tax return, no marital deduction, no social security benefits. One might well ask, what kind of marriage is this? That's what the justices were saying back in the spring, Wolf. Now we're going to see what decision the summer has brought.
Tom Foreman, thanks very much. Obviously, a lot at stake right now in this first case, whether or not the Defense of Marriage Act, which President Bill Clinton actually signed into law back in the 90s, is or is not constitutional. There's a lot at stake, of course, for everyone, including the President of the United States. Jessica Young is traveling with the President. Actually, let's go to Jessica in a moment, but Jake Tapper is over at the U.S. Supreme Court. Jake, I understand you've gone through the paperwork now, and you're ready to tell our viewers what the justices have decided.
That's right, Wolf. This is a landmark ruling about whether or not the federal government's refusal to recognize same-sex marriages, people who have been married legally according to the laws of their state, whether the federal government's refusal to recognize them is constitutional or not. I'm going to bring in Jeff Toobin, who has been going over the decision. Jeff, it seems like the court has said the federal government does not have a right to not recognize these marriages.
Discriminates against gay people. This isn't a decision about states' rights. This isn't a narrowly written decision. This is a decision that says the federal government, by passing DOMA, demeans those persons who are in a lawful same-sex marriage. That's a quote from the opinion. This opinion says that the federal government cannot discriminate against people who have valid same-sex marriages. They're entitled Security survivors benefits. They are entitled to be informed when their spouses are killed in action. This is a decision that says gay people have equal rights under the federal Constitution.
Because Jeff is making the point here.
I've been wasting time without losing my ambition. It's not superstition, it's just another way I survive on my own. I am better than all of you rolled together in a bowl. You may say I'm lazy, but don't call me crazy as hell. And I knew I once